Discover the amazing tale of the only secretary who transformed the life of a wheelchair-bound veteran. In the heart of Maplewood, Sophie sat at her desk in the Veterans Community Center, her fingers dancing over the keyboard as laughter floated in from the main hall. She was known as the glue that held this tight-knit community together, a beacon of positivity amid the struggles of war and life. But it was the sound of a wheelchair rolling through the door that captured her attention. As he entered, Ben, an Iraqi war veteran, stole Sophie's breath away. His body bore the scars of battle, and his eyes told stories no one dared to ask him about. When he glanced at her, he quickly averted his gaze, as if the weight of his past pressed down on him too heavily. Sophie felt her chest tighten, the weight of his pain evident even in that brief moment. The fierce independence that once defined him seemed shattered, as he was now trapped in a world that didn't seem to understand him. "Let us take it one day at a time," she whispered, her heart breaking for the man in front of her. Those simple words sparked something within Ben. Their first conversations felt like a delicate dance, filled with silent pauses and hesitant words. But as days turned into weeks, Sophie's warmth melted away Ben's reluctance. They shared stories over coffee, laughter intermingling with tears as he spoke of the brotherhood lost in battle and the struggle against demons that lurked in his mind. She listened with unwavering attention, becoming a confidant who understood the unspeakable toll that war exacted. However, not everyone in Maplewood shared their newfound bond. The annual Veterans Fundraiser, meant to bolster support, had become fodder for bitter disputes. In town meetings and on the streets, whispers grew louder, accusations flew. "They're draining our resources," some townsfolk lamented, their eyes narrowing on the veterans they had once honored. Sophie felt anger bubbling in her chest as she listened to her community fracture over misunderstandings and outdated views. How could they turn on the very men and women who fought for their freedoms? With each passing day, Sophie's dedication faced fierce scrutiny, including from her family. "Why do you waste your time on a broken man?" her brother questioned one evening, disdain dripping from his tone. Each word pierced her heart, but it was Ben's retreat into silence that stung more. The world outside was pressing in, and he began to pull away, shielding himself from the very help he desperately needed. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." Sophie's heart raced as she worked to coax Ben out of his shell. "You're not alone in this," she urged during late-night brainstorming sessions filled with laughter and notes sprawled across their tables. "Think of all the veterans like you who feel voiceless. We can change that." She could see the flicker of hope in his eyes, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, they could find their place together in a community that seemed to forget too easily. As the fundraiser approached, a sense of urgency pressed on Sophie's chest. If they didn't act now, the remnants of a divided whirlwind could tear apart the very foundation they cherished. With Ben by her side, could they rekindle the spirit of Maplewood and remind everyone of the true meaning of sacrifice and heroism? Time was running out, leaving their futures on a precarious edge together. They would have to face the storm. Would they find the courage to overcome adversity and redefine what it meant to heal? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be unveiled. As the fundraiser approached, every day seemed to carry a heavier weight. Sophie sat across from Ben in their favorite corner of the community center, the table cluttered with papers, posters, and hopes. The laughter that used to resonate between them felt silenced by the growing tension in the town, and Sophie could see that uncertainty hidden in Ben's expression. "We need to make them understand," she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "This event is our chance to remind people who we are and what we've done. It's not just about the funds, it's about bringing the community back together." Ben stared at the paper in front of him, his fingers tracing the outline of a poster he had designed, a heartfelt reminder of the sacrifices made by veterans. "What if they don't come?" he murmured, his eyes distant. "That's why we have to do this," Sophie emphasized, leaning in closer. "Every single veteran has a story. Yours is just one of many, and it matters. People need to hear it." Their discussions deepened with each passing moment, the camaraderie slowly building as Ben began to share more of his memories, good ones and bad ones, filling the room with a raw vulnerability that made Sophie's heart ache. She didn't just want to help him heal, she wanted everyone to understand that healing was possible. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, bathing the room in a golden glow, Ben slowly began to open up again. "It's hard to face the looks, the pity. But maybe this could be something powerful." His voice was almost a whisper but carried the weight of a breakthrough. "Exactly," Sophie exclaimed, nodding vigorously, her excitement bubbling out. "We can focus on inspiration. Stories of strength and perseverance. We can't let the negativity drown us." That night, as they drove home together, a storm brewed outside, matching the turmoil inside town. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled, mimicking the swirling doubts that had taken root in Ben's mind. "Do you really think people will come?" he asked quietly, almost as if seeking reassurance. Sophie took a deep breath. She knew this wasn't merely about attendance. It was about bridging those gaps, about igniting a spark of understanding within Maplewood. "They will, Ben. If we show them who we are, they will come. And they'll remember." Days turned into a whirlwind of preparation. Flyers were posted, phone calls were made, and the energy began to shift. For every voice of doubt, there were now voices of support. Despite the rumors and resentment, a tide began to turn. Those who once harbored skepticism now reached out, offering help and supplies. Then came the evening of the fundraiser, the community center transformed into a space of hope and remembrance. Lights twinkled like stars against the darkened sky, and laughter, mingled with anxious energy, filled the air. Ben sat in front of a crowd larger than he could envision just weeks earlier. As Sophie introduced him, she felt his hands clench slightly, but she was right there beside him, her heart thumping as fiercely as his. "You can do this," she whispered, stealing a glance at him, and he met her eyes, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. But as Ben took the microphone, something unexpected happened. A murmur rippled through the audience, fueled by uncertainty and past prejudices. Could they truly connect and understand his journey? With each word he spoke, he fought against years of silence, revealing the truth of his battle both on and off the field. Would they listen? Would they embrace him, scars and all? As he spoke, the air crackled with anticipation. The moment hung heavy, charged with the potential for change. How far could acceptance go? Would Ben's story finally resonate, breaking down those barriers? The answer felt just beyond their grasp, waiting to be discovered in the hearts of the listeners surrounding them. And hidden in that silence was a truth yet to unfold, a truth that could transform not only Ben's life but the very fabric of their community. As Ben stood before the crowd, the murmurs swirled like a tempest. His throat tightened as he clenched the microphone tighter, the cold metal digging into his palm. Sophie could feel the weight of the moment, her heart pounding almost as loudly as the echoes of doubt around him. She sensed his hesitation, and it terrified her. "Look," he began, his voice trembling as he searched for the right words. I know many of you have heard stories. Stories of bravery, of glory. But I want to share something different. I want to share my truth." Sophie leaned forward, breathing deeply, willing him to dive in. This was the moment. He was finally reaching beyond his own pain, ready to bridge a chasm that felt insurmountable. "Everyone thinks they know what war is about," Ben continued, his gaze scanning the faces before him. "The honor, the pride. But what happens when you come home? What happens when you're left with scars that don't show? A hush settled over the audience. The tension was palpable. Sophie could almost see their collective breath being held, waiting for what would come next. "I was lucky," Ben pressed on, recalling those early days back in Maplewood, the looks of pity, the whispers behind his back. "I had my friends, my family. But it wasn't enough. I felt invisible." A lump formed in Sophie's throat. She remembered those dark days, standing beside him while he spiraled into despair. "You're not invisible," she had told him. "You have a voice." And here it was. Ben took a deep breath, allowing vulnerability to spill into the gap of silence. "Every single one of you is part of my story. I wanted to stay behind the wall I built. It felt safer. But I can't hide anymore. I can't let fear dictate my life." His eyes glistened, and Sophie felt a surge of bravery radiating from him. This was the catalyst they had been working towards. "We've all faced our demons. But I'm here to tell you it's okay to be broken. We all have our battles, and we need each other to heal." A soft murmuring began, a tentative ripple in the crowd. Heads nodded. Sophie saw understanding forming where skepticism once roamed free. This was the liberation they had fought for. Ben continued, his words flowing more freely now. "I might be in a wheelchair, but that doesn't define who I am. My scars tell a story, one of survival, of strength. And each of you has your own." The silence now transformed into hushed gasps and gentle affirmations. Sophie felt a warmth spreading in her chest as glimmers of hope filled the room. Those who once looked through him were starting to see him, and he was finally breaking down those walls. But just as the tide seemed to shift, a figure emerged from the back of the room. It was Tom, the town's former mayor, a man whose disapproval had echoed through Maplewood for years. He stepped forward, his posture rigid, eyes ablaze with something: fear? Anger? "Are you saying that we should just forget what happened? That we should ignore the scars?" Tom's voice was steeped in bitterness, weaving through the crowd like a blade. Sophie's heart sank. The moment threatened to fracture, the fragile connection hanging by a thread. Ben's expression faltered, uncertainty creeping back into his features. Would they allow old grudges to drown the progress they had just made? He took a moment, grounding himself before responding. "No, Tom. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we need to acknowledge those scars to embrace them. We're not just veterans. We're husbands, fathers, friends. We owe it to ourselves and to each other to heal." As Ben's words settled, Sophie sensed a shift. The tension in the air curled, slowly loosening. Would Tom take that step, meet them halfway? The eyes of the crowd shifted between Ben and the mayor, and Sophie held her breath, waiting for a spark of understanding, a moment of clarity. Would the voices of the past silence the hope of the future, or could this be the beginning of something monumental for their town? The answer lingered, suspended in the air, a question that echoed long after the evening's final moments faded away. How could they forge a new path from the ashes of old resentments? And what hidden stories within the crowd would emerge next? The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Ben's heart raced as he took in Tom's expression, a molasses mix of uncertainty and stubbornness. The tension crackled like static electricity, and for a brief moment, Sophie feared all their hard-earned progress might shatter under the weight of one man's resistance. Tom shifted, a muscle ticked in his jaw. "You think it's that easy? To just forget the pain? How can you ask the town to just move on? Forget?" Ben replied, his voice steadier now, fueled by the warmth spreading through the audience. "This isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering in a way that propels us forward. Holding on to pain isn't the same as honoring it." The crowd began to murmur again, and Sophie saw glimmers of contemplation on familiar faces. They were wrestling with the tension of the moment. Some nodded, while others shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Was there enough courage left in their town to step out of the resentment that had cloaked them for so long? Sophie leaned closer, slipping her hand on Ben's shoulder. He glanced over, and she gave him a short nod, a silent reminder to keep being brave. They had fought so hard to come to this point, they weren't going to let it slip away. Tom took a deep breath, his shoulders rising and falling like a tide. "You're talking about healing, but you're not the only one with scars, Ben. We all lost something. This town, our community, were damaged too." Ben's eyes flickered with empathy. "I understand that. We have all experienced loss, but it's in sharing that pain that we can find strength. You, Tom, you can lead us. You have the respect of this town. You can help us change the narrative." A ripple of disbelief echoed through the crowd. Could the former mayor really embody a bridge between the hurt of the past and the hope for the future? The question hovered in the air, destabilizing old ties and forging new ones. Tom hesitated, and in that moment, Ben seized the opportunity. "If we can stand together in our vulnerability, we can rebuild this town not just for ourselves, but for the generations that follow. We can show them it's okay to share their scars, to own their stories instead of hiding from them." Sophie felt some in the crowd start shifting, whispering. Old resentments might not dissolve overnight, but hope could take root if nurtured. The challenge lay before everyone, not just Ben, but all of them willing to confront their truths. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Tom's face softened, and Sophie sensed a crack, like a sliver of light breaking through dark clouds. "I guess you're right," he finally said, a hint of reluctant acceptance in his voice. "But this isn't a magic fix. It'll take time." "Time and effort," Ben agreed, his heart swelling at this small breakthrough. "But it starts with this moment. Let us be loud and proud about our stories." The crowd cheered softly, and the sound rose like a tide. The air buzzed with possibility. They were ready to listen and to share. They could learn to embrace their stories and invite others to do the same. Just as the crowd began to rally, Ben noticed Margaret, a longtime resident, her eyes glistening with tears. "My husband didn't come back from the war," she whispered, her voice cracking. Gasps echoed in the audience, a raw reminder of the sacrifices made. "Everyone has their own stories," Ben said. "This is just the beginning. If we can face our truth together." But before he could finish, another voice erupted from the back. "And what about those of us who don't agree? Who think you're wasting our time with this nonsense?" Sophie's heart raced. Who was challenging them now? Would this confrontation turn the tide back to suspicion and division? Would they seize the moment of courage, or let it slip through their fingers once again? As the crowd began to stir, she realized they were on the precipice of something bigger than all of them. Could they truly unite despite old wounds? The atmosphere thrummed with anticipation, and Sophie clenched her fists, hoping against hope for a miracle. Their stories mattered, and maybe, just maybe, they were ready to hear one another. But what conflict awaited them now? The unease in the room twisted like a storm cloud. Voices murmured, anger bubbling beneath the surface as that one dissenting voice echoed. Sophie scanned the crowd, searching for the source of the challenge. It was a younger man, Jason, fidgeting nervously but holding a fire in his eyes. "What do you know about us?" He spat, his words sharp as knives. "You all talk about healing, about sharing. But what if someone just wants to hold on to their anger? What if that's the only thing that feels real?" Tom stepped forward, fists clenched, his brow furrowed. "Holding on to anger won't fix anything. It's a burden we carry. It bends us, breaks us. I know this town feels lost, but we can't keep hiding behind our pain." Jason shot him a withering glare. "And how am I supposed to believe you? You turned your back on us when it mattered. You think just because you say some words, it'll magically erase years of hurt? It won't." With each word, Jason's voice grew louder, more fervent, and Sophie felt the tension ripple through the crowd. Old wounds were being torn open, and she feared they might not recover if they continued down this path. Ben took a step into the fray, his face calm yet determined. "We can't change the past, Jason. But we can change how we respond to it. Hanging on to anger only claws at us from the inside. We can honor our hurt, but we can do it together. This community deserves better." There was a moment of silence, everyone holding their breath, awaiting Jason's response. A wave of uncertainty washed over the crowd as some began nodding hesitantly, while others exchanged looks of defiance. "You think you can just change everything with a few speeches?" Jason sneered. "What do you know about losing everything?" Sophie stepped forward, feeling her heartbeat quicken. "A lot of us know what loss feels like, Jason. We've all been knocked down. I lost my father. It doesn't define us, but it can lead us somewhere if we choose to let it." Jason's defenses faltered. The fire in his eyes flickered as he processed her words, and he took a deep breath. Yet he remained unconvinced, his voice softer but still skeptical. "So what? We spill our guts, cry it all out, and then what? We're still the same people with the same issues hanging over us." Ben nodded, his voice steady. "It's not just about crying. It's about acknowledging our pain and choosing to move forward as a community. Think about it, what could we create if we all start working together instead of against each other?" Something shifted in the crowd. The seeds of doubt began to sprout, and Sophie saw genuine contemplation creeping into faces once hardened by frustration. Maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to see the light. Tom addressed Jason again, his tone earnest. "If we let go of our anger, we don't have to forget our pain. We can learn from it. My hope is that this town can stand taller, together." With those words hanging in the air, Jason's posture slackened, uncertainty flickering back on his face. "What if I don't want to forgive?" he whispered, vulnerability slipping through his bravado. A hush fell over the crowd. The shared silence was heavy but also a doorway, a chance for revelation, bridging the divide of resentment with the possibility of unity. "Forgiveness isn't giving up," Ben said softly, "it's reclaiming your power. It's about freeing yourself." The atmosphere crackled with energy, the crowd shifting closer together, leaning in as though drawn by an invisible thread. The question remained. Would they let their fears pull them apart again, or could they draw strength from each other? In that charged moment, the crowd held its collective breath, waiting for Jason's reply. Would he take the step toward letting go, or cling to his anger, perhaps dragging others down with him? Sophie held on to hope. She didn't know for sure what the next moment would bring, but she sensed that something big was unfolding. It was a crossroad, a chance at a new path, but one they would need to forge together. Would they seize this pivotal moment, or let it slip away? The silence stretched, thick with anticipation. Jason looked around, taking in the faces of those who once felt like strangers to him. Some wore expressions of pain, others of cautious hope. It was an unfamiliar sight, an island of empathy in a sea of history that had so often divided them. "You think it's that easy?" he finally asked, his voice trembling slightly. "To just forgive and move on? What if I can't?" Tom stepped forward again, gentleness edging his resolve. "It's not easy. If it were, we wouldn't be standing here, would we? It takes time, and it takes work. But it's a step, a small one, but it's a start. We've all been wronged, and we feel lost, but that doesn't mean we have to stay lost forever." Jason's eyes narrowed at the ground, wrestling with the prospect of letting go. "But anger is comfortable. It's a fire that keeps me warm. To forgive feels like handing over my power." "Sometimes letting go means rewriting your story," Ben countered. "You get to be the author of your life. Your past is just that past. You can choose how it ends. Why not write a story where you don't carry that anger with you? Where you find peace?" The murmurs in the crowd began to swell. Sophie felt the tension start to loosen, as if a mounting wave had finally broken. She watched as Jason's shoulders began to soften, his defenses momentarily crumbling. This was their moment, a chance for them all to rise above their burdens together. Okay. Jason sighed, the weight of that single word hung heavy in the air. But what if I say no to all this? What if I can't be part of it? Then so be it, Tom replied, a hint of compassion lacing his voice. But know that we'll keep this door open for you. Everyone here has their own battles to fight. If you choose to stay in your anger, we'll still be here when you're ready. We're not going anywhere. The crowd seemed to breathe in unison, an unspoken understanding knitting them closer. Sophie could see it, the desire to heal, to stretch beyond bitterness, creating a network of support. She thought of her father and the lessons he had imparted about resilience. Maybe Jason needed that same reminder. Even if it scares you? Jason whispered, his tone breaking just a little. Especially then, Tom said firmly. Growth comes from discomfort. Jason hesitated. Thoughts raced in his mind, battling preconceived notions with flickers of curiosity. And what if I fail? Then we help you get back up again. Ben smiled, arms open, an invitation into the light. That's what a community is for. Clarity began to emerge in Jason's eyes. A flicker of possibility ignited, too fragile to recognize just yet, but enough for Sophie to feel hope blossom in her chest. I don't know, he admitted, finally letting a bit of that fire smolder into understanding. But I want to try. I just don't know how. Start with one step, Sophie said, her voice steady and warm. One step toward trust. Even asking is a step forward. Jason looked up, a flicker of resolve crossing his features as he met the gazes of those before him. It was then he realized that acceptance didn't mean erasing the past, it meant carrying it differently. As hope washed over them, laughter broke the tension like sunlight streaming through clouds. One by one, people nodded, smiles emerging, infectious in their warmth. It felt like the thawing of winter, the promise of spring. But deep inside, Sophie sensed a storm was still brewing. They had taken a bold step, but transformations were often messy and complex. Would they truly be able to hold on to the threads of unity they were weaving now, or would fear pull them apart again? The room felt lighter, but she knew this was only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Would they embrace the changes ahead, or would they fall back into old patterns? With their journey just unfolding, Sophie could hardly contain her anticipation for what lay ahead. As the laughter faded and the warmth of possibility enveloped the room, Jason felt a heaviness lift from his shoulders. But beneath that blanket of hope, a nervous tension lingered. He wasn't sure what to make of the stirring emotions: joy, fear, uncertainty. It was a mixed bag, and all he could do was sort through the chaos of his heart. He stood there, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him, each pair of eyes holding stories of their own suffering. It reminded him that the journey ahead wasn't just his alone, it belonged to everyone who stood with him. Yet, that truth felt like a double-edged sword. The burden of collective healing was both liberating and terrifying. Tom stepped closer, a reassuring presence. You know, this doesn't have to be one big leap into the unknown. Just take it one conversation at a time. Share your feelings. Ask questions. We're not here to judge. We're here to support. Jason nodded, yet doubt still loomed. What if I say the wrong thing? Or what if everyone just sees me as that angry guy they used to know? Ben chimed in, those labels? They don't define who you are now. You have the chance to redefine yourself, to show everyone a glimpse of who you want to be. Sophie felt a rush of gratitude for her friends, their unwavering faith igniting a fire inside her. She wanted to reach out, but instead, she opted to hold space for Jason, giving him the time to breathe as he processed. The room grew silent save for the distant sounds of the city outside. The buzz of life carried on, but here, they birthed something new, an idea that strength lay in vulnerability. "Okay," Jason finally said, his voice quiet but steady. "I want to start. But I can't promise it will be easy." No one expected perfection. There was an understanding in the air, a pact, perhaps. They were all flawed, all navigating this messy life together. "Just promise you'll try." Sophie leaned in closer, her eyes bright with sincerity. "And we'll figure out the rest along the way." "I can do that," he replied, taking a shaky breath. His shoulders eased just a notch more, and something in his stance shifted. As the conversations resumed, laughter hung like a sweet melody in the air. People began to share stories, interspersing shared experiences with gentle laughter. The feeling was infectious, a buoyancy that enveloped each individual, drawing them closer. Yet, as joy filled the room, Sophie couldn't shake a lingering question. They were experiencing a moment of connection, but how long could it last? What awaited them on the other side of this fragile bridge they were constructing? She caught a glimpse of Jason, a small smile playing on his lips as he exchanged stories with Ben. That fleeting moment struck her as both beautiful and precarious. Turning back to the group, she could feel the pull of something deeper brewing beneath the surface. Would the strength they were building withstand the inevitable storms of life? Were they truly equipped to navigate the old wounds that could tear them apart again? As the laughter faded into deep conversation and deeper vulnerability, Sophie knew there was still a road ahead. Each story shared, and every step taken toward healing, could either further strengthen their bond or create fissures that might sink them. "Let us keep moving forward," she whispered to herself, determination blossoming within. But as they ventured forth, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey, with all its complexities and tests, was only beginning. What would happen when the winds of change began to blow? The conversation swirled around Jason like a gentle breeze, brushing against him with whispers of shared experiences and hopeful glances. The laughter was infectious, each chuckle a thread pulling them closer together, yet inside, he felt an undercurrent of unease. As he listened, stories of heartache and resilience washed over him, and he realized they were forging connections that could either heal or hurt. "I remember when I thought I'd never get up again," one woman, Lily, shared, her voice trembling but confident. "After my accident, I lost everything. It felt like my soul was crushed. But then, I found strength I didn't know I had." Her eyes sparkled as she spoke, a light igniting in the dim room. Jason watched her, captivated. Could he share his own struggles with that kind of courage? The idea seemed daunting. But as he encountered the warmth of the group and their understanding nods, Jason felt that familiar flame of resilience flicker to life within him, battling against the shadows of doubt. He took a deep breath, the words swimming up from the depths of his chest. "I used to think anger was my only outlet. It made me feel strong. But it was just a mask." The room quieted as all eyes turned to him, curiosity and compassion mixing in the air like sweet perfume. "But I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be better." "You already are," Tom encouraged, his eyes steady. "By just being here, you're already changing." The affirmation swirled around him like a warm hug. Still, he hesitated, his heart racing. What if this was just a fleeting moment? What if admitting vulnerability led to his undoing? Then, without thinking too much, Jason took a leap. "In high school, I was the loud, angry kid. I didn't know how to be anything else. But I'm tired of being trapped in that label. I want to show you guys the me who's just real." As he spoke, he could feel the weight of his past tugging at him, but something brighter began to rise, an urge to embrace the truth of who he had become. Sophie smiled brilliantly, her eyes shimmering with admiration. "That's it, Jason. Just be real. We're all messy here. Every story, every struggle shapes who we are together." As if woven into their exchange, another voice chimed in. "And we learn from each other's journey. That's how we grow," said Ben, leaning forward as though trying to pull Jason into the circle of camaraderie. Jason relaxed a little more, the shared energy buoying him. It wasn't just about his struggles, it was everyone's story blending into a tapestry of experiences. Laughter erupted again, this time, bigger, loftier, with exuberance radiating like sunlight breaking through clouds. But underneath this fragile armor of joy, Sophie still felt the pull of uncertainty. She glanced at Jason, who appeared lighter, yet she wondered how long this moment could hold. Was it real, or just the calm before chaos struck again? As moments passed, each interaction built upon the last, she felt the presence of unspoken words hanging in the air. What if Jason faced rejection that night? What if the waves of vulnerability they had stirred began to pull them apart? She pushed aside her misgivings, focusing on the laughter and stories flowing around her, telling herself that they were stronger together, woven in this fabric of newfound connection. But as she watched Jason open up, a flicker of fear slipped in. What if the truth he revealed opened old wounds nobody was truly ready to heal? Determined, she held on to hope as tightly as she could. One step, one word, one shared story at a time. What did they all truly have to lose? And yet the question still rested in her heart, thickening the air. Can we really face it all? She thought, a mix of urgency and hope flooding within. As joy danced in the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was just around the corner. Would they be able to hold on when the winds of change blew fierce? Her intuition was stirring, ready to pull back the curtain on the next chapter of healing. Would Jason's courage inspire others to dig deeper, or would the revelations plunge them into a whirlpool of difficult truths that could redefine them all? As laughter echoed around Jason, he allowed himself to sink deeper into the moment. He glanced at Sophie, her eyes bright with encouragement, and his heart stirred with a strange mix of hope and fear. Could he really be transforming before their eyes? The atmosphere felt electric, charged with potential, but a whisper of doubt trickled into his thoughts. He noticed the others, nodding along, but what about when the laughter subsided? What would remain when the stories turned raw and the laughter faded? Before he could spiral too far into those thoughts, Ben's voice broke through like a gentle wave. What if we each shared a moment we thought we could never overcome? There was a weight to his suggestion, a reminder that vulnerability was a two-way street. Yeah, like a scary moment, Lily added, her gaze sweeping over the group, urging them to take a step closer to honesty. What pushed you to fight back when everything seemed lost? Jason's stomach nodded at the idea. He could feel the walls he had just started to dismantle begin to fortify themselves. But he wasn't the only one caught in a web of hesitation. Tom shifted in his seat, clearly grappling with the prospect of exposing himself further. "All right," Tom finally said, his voice steady but soft. "I'll go. There was this time during college, I failed a class. It shook my confidence like nothing else. I thought it was the end of my dreams." He hesitated, pausing to take a breath. "But I realized I had to change my attitude. It wasn't fatal. I could keep trying, reevaluate my path." His story opened a door, and suddenly, the group shifted, leaning in closer, hungry for each other's truths. "Failure feels crushing," Sophie said softly, her eyes locked onto Tom's. "But it's monumental to rise again." Jason marveled at the ease with which others shared. He felt like a pot of boiling water ready to spill over. Could he match them? Could he dig into his memories and lay bare his struggles too? "Here's mine," he finally breathed out. The words tumbled out as he edged toward the precipice of vulnerability. "There was a night I really let my anger take control. I screamed and broke so many things at home. My brother, he didn't deserve it. But in my haze, I couldn't see past my own pain." He paused, the memory tightening around him. "I thought that would solidify my strength, but all it left me was emptiness." The room fell silent. Jason rubbed his palms together, feeling the sweat gather there as he steeled himself against their reactions. Was it too much? Vulnerability felt like leaping from the edge of a cliff into uncertainty. What if they turned away? But then, Sophie's hand reached out, covering his. A simple gesture, yet it felt monumental. You're not alone, Jason. Anger can blind, but admitting it is the first step to healing. Her words washed over him, and he let his breath out slowly, feeling the knot loosen slightly. That's right, Ben echoed, his voice strong. It's about what we do after. It's how we connect and learn, reminding ourselves of our humanity. Jason looked around the room, meeting the gazes of everyone who had shared their truths. There was no scorn, only empathy. They were willing to hold his pain alongside theirs. Yet just as the feeling of camaraderie began to suffocate Jason's lingering fears, the door creaked open, drawing their attention. A new face stepped inside, one that held an aura of sadness mixed with something else, perhaps desperation. The energy in the room shifted, the fragile tapestry of healing about to be tested. Can we really face it all? Jason thought again, a fierce urgency igniting within him. What did this newcomer bring with them, and how would it change the delicate balance they had built? The fear lurked, stirring his instincts. The room remained poised on the brink of change, ready to embrace whatever revelations were meant to come their way. And he couldn't shake the feeling that they might have to brace themselves for an even wilder storm than they had anticipated. Would this new presence be a catalyst for deeper connections or fractured vulnerabilities? As the door creaked open wider, a woman stepped inside, her expression a mix of urgency and vulnerability. The bustling conversations quieted, and all eyes turned towards her, curiosity and concern intertwining in the air. She hesitated at first, inhaling deeply, as if bracing herself for the weight of the room's collective gaze. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "My name is Maya. I don't know where else to turn." Sophie felt a knot form in her stomach. In her heart, she recognized the look, the search for connection, for understanding, that mirrored what they all had experienced. The air crackled with possibilities, and she sensed that this moment, steeped in emotional gravity, could either strengthen their resolve or test it like never before. "Please, go on," Ben encouraged gently, his eyes steady, offering her a safe space to speak. "We're here for you." Maya nodded, her expression softening as she shared her story, vulnerability spilling forth like water from a broken dam. "I lost my brother to PTSD a few months ago. He was a veteran and fought every day after he returned, but we didn't know how to help him. I didn't know how to help him." The room filled with murmurs of sympathy, shared heartache washing over everyone like a wave. Jason felt his heart throb. This wasn't just about anger anymore, it was about loss, grief, longing, all raw emotions that tied them together. "Every day felt like I was watching a part of him fade away," Maya continued, tears springing in her eyes. "And when he finally gave in, I felt helpless. Like I had failed him. I wish I could have done something, anything, to pull him back." As her words hung in the air, Jason looked around at his friends, heaving a sigh as the shared weight of sorrow pressed down on them. He thought about the anger that consumed him, how it distracted him from the deeper issues he faced. Maya's story was a stark reminder of how fragility lurked behind every smile, how unseen battles were fought within those who seemed whole. Sophie moved forward, her heart full of compassion. "You didn't fail him. Sometimes, the fight isn't just against the outside world, it's inside us, too. You were fighting alongside him. Just reaching out, like you did tonight, takes courage." Maya looked at Sophie, and in her gaze, Jason saw the smallest spark of relief flicker to life. Hope and heartache cohabitated, knitting new threads into their tapestry. "Maybe we need to help each other figure this out," Ben added, his voice firm with resolve. "Together, we can support one another in ways we couldn't before. Your brother isn't the only one who struggled. There are many stories here waiting to be told." His words felt like a lighthouse breaking through the fog, illuminating the hidden corners of their hearts. Jason took a deep breath, his earlier fears dissolving in the face of that truth. Maya, your brother's story matters. Just like yours, and mine, we can create a space where voices are heard, we can ensure that no one else feels lost. The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding in solidarity. An invisible bond began to weave between them, growing stronger with each sentiment shared, each pain acknowledged. But what if we fail? Maya's voice trembled again, uncertainty shadowing her eyes. What if it doesn't change anything? Then we'll keep trying. Jason stepped forward, encouraged by the warmth radiating from the group. We're all going to have those moments when we stumble. That doesn't mean we lose hope. We pick each other up and keep going. He didn't need to look around, he felt them with him, buoyed by the energy shifting in the room. Somehow, they were forging a new identity together, but it was fragile, a candle flickering in the dark. Maya's shoulders relaxed, her breath catching in the simplest of acknowledgments. I want to fight too. I don't want my brother's story to end in tragedy, but rather inspire change. I'm still learning. Can you all show me how to continue? Jason's heart swelled with determination, hearing the fight reawakening within her. Absolutely, he replied firmly. We'll embrace the messiness together. Let us articulate our pain and channel it into something meaningful together. As they all shared stories about their loved ones who fought and fell, laughter intertwined with tears, creating a tapestry of resilience. Each story planted a seed, fostering something new within them that began to bloom. The evening passed, enriched by shared burdens, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of newfound hope filled the room. Connections deepened, and for Jason and the others, peeling back the layers of their pain transformed into a beautiful act of reclamation. Yet, as the night wore on, Sophie felt that familiar voice in her mind whispering caution. Could they hold on to this transcendence when tomorrow came? Would the human spirit remain fierce against the tides of adversity? As laughter and lightness mingled with grief, Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that they had taken the first steps into a new chapter of their lives. But would they follow through? Would they be equipped for the trials yet to come, or would the storm break down their fragile connections? Either way, in that moment, joy nestled against pain, hope intertwined with suffering, and they dared to dream together. As the night closed, she felt the loftiest possibility. They were moving toward something great. But trust would be their greatest ally, and just outside the walls of camaraderie lay the real test. She held on to that hope tightly. They were in this together now, come what may, through laughter, tears, and every twist in between. Jason softly smiled, drawing strength from the warmth of their circle as they stood united against the unseen storms that awaited them. They were ready to be brave. Together. Now, for you, dear friends, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, trust me, it makes a difference. And comment your reactions and feelings about this exciting transformation. Also, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.